Gillian and Morningsteen as well as members. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Have we got anything, Sarah?
Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Hussey and Councillor Duff.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else got any apologies? No? Great, that's great. If we move on to item 2 then, on the roll call.
Chair, I'll do that for you. Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, I am here, but I'm unable to join on my laptop, so I'm on my mobile phone, so I'm going to have my camera switched off for most of the meeting.
That's fine, Councillor Colbrand. Thank you, all noted. Councillor Spencer?
Present, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, apologise. Councillor Evans?
Yes, I'm here.
No. Councillor Hodgins? Can't see Councillor Hodgins at the moment. Councillor Morgan?
Yes, present. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Councillor Smith?
Yep, present.
Hello. And Councillor White?
Yeah, but I'm also got my camera turned off because I got 2 other members of my family working from home. And if I have my camera on too much, I lose connection.
That's fine, thank you, Councillor White. Also to advise members, Dowie Rose and Chris Barton are also online as well.
Yeah, very photogenic this morning there. If we can move on to item 3, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any? No, the only one I've got is page 86, which is new is mentioned as usual for me.
Thank you, noted.
If nobody's got any or anything crops up during the discussion or the meeting, please mention it, before we go any further. Okay, thank you. Item 4, chairperson's announcement. I've got nothing I'm aware of, so that's the next thing. Item 5, to receive the minutes of Finance, Audit and Performance Management Committee held on Monday, 13th of December 2021, and that's page 5. Page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. Anybody would like to raise anything, or?
I'll move those, Chair.
Would anybody like to second it? Or I could second it if you want, but yeah. Everybody happy with that then? That's brilliant. Right. They're only reports for decision noting, Sarah, or?
Sorry, Councillor Evans?
We don't need to make that's just for noting, is it?
Yeah, just for noting. So I've got a mover and a second. Thank you.
Just make members aware.
Yeah.
Susan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, perhaps I should declare an interest on 86 as well for Pontypridd and Tonopandi because it's under RCT.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Sometimes you see it without realising it's
yeah.
your area. Yeah.
I keep thinking my area is Ferndale and Mardy, and that's about it.
We've all been there, don't worry. Thanks for that anyway, and that's duly noted.
Yeah.
The next one to look at is
hang on, Chairman. Can I just?
Oh,
just
sorry,
for
Val.
curiosity, no. A hose inflation kit. Did we establish what it was? Hose inflation kit. It's 103.2. The point doesn't matter. It's along.
Yeah,
we're going to come in on that.
Can I come in, Councillor Steve?
Yeah, come in, Dylan.
Yeah, so the hose inflation kit is used for water rescue. So where we have a rescue that we can inflate hose with air from our air cylinders, then we can use the hose to float on water to actually provide a means whereby somebody that's in the water in danger can hold on to, and we can pull them back to the bank side.
I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's not what I
Okay,
thought.
well.
Thank you.
I know. They always got an answer, and that's brilliant because there's always an immediate response. Thank you, Dewi.
Well, they know what they're doing, you see, Chairman.
Yeah, you haven't got to convince me. If everybody's happy, we move on to the next one, which is the Finance, Asset and Performance Management Risk Scrutiny Group held on Monday, 6th of December 2021. That's page 11.
Yep.
Then, well,
I did find
11, then I got a page intentionally blank. So then page 13.
So on. I've got
14 and 15 and 16. Would anybody like to read anything on parts of that?
Can I just make a comment, Chairman? I found Appendix 1 was Appendix 1 was a very useful chart. It's very concise and thank you.
Yeah. There we are. Is everybody happy to note that? That's the report.
Yeah. And can I ask, please, Chairman, when we said that we would extend consultation to all council members that was engaged with the strategic planning and such like, was it all members of the Fire Authority or all members of our elected authorities?
I believe, Councillor Smith, it was in respect of all members of all 10 constituent authorities was the intention. Perhaps I'll come back to that when I do the Financial Management Code.
Thank you very much.
That's a question within a question. He's getting a good politician, Balliard. Look. So everyone.
Can we have a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the Thank you.
So we've got a mover and a seconder. Yep. Right. So everybody's happy to note that. That's fine. That's great.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Right. The next part we're on reports for decision. Item 6, the CIPFA Financial Management Code, page 17. And who's leading on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's me.
Okay,
So the Financial Management Code is, I mean, you'll have read the report, I'm sure, is designed to support good practice in financial management and assist local authorities to prove their financial sustainability. The reason for the code coming in, really, you'll all have seen, I think, press coverage around various public authorities that have struggled both with the financial resources they have available to deliver services, but also sort of increases in demand for those services as well. And there have been quite a few high-profile cases of local authorities, in particular within England, where there have been calls for kind of almost administrators being called in to take over the authorities because of their financial situation. So SIPFA's response to that was to develop the Financial Management Code, and really it was about bringing together a whole range of different aspects of financial management into one location where authorities could gain assurance about their financial sustainability and their future-proofing, if you like. The code itself is usefully summarised in a document.
Hello, I was just logging on to a meeting. I'm on it at the moment. I just turned the camera off.
Can somebody put
I've just muted that member. So.
Chair, sorry. The code is usefully summarised into a diagrammatic form on page 23 of your agenda, which sets out under a number of key themes the key aspects of the code which SIPFA really think ought to be in place within local authorities. So you'll see there's 6 headings across the top of that chart: leadership, accountability, transparency, standards, assurance and sustainability. And under each of those, there's a kind of key aspect which they expect local authorities to have in place. The way we've approached this as a fire authority is we undertook a self-assessment ourselves as officers of each of the areas of the code demonstrated within that diagram. and the self-assessment is included in Appendix 2 to the report. And what we've done is we've considered that as a finance team, we've considered it to our senior management team and an executive leadership team. And we also then took this self-assessment through the scrutiny group to actually get their views on whether they thought it was reasonable or not. And out of that discussion really came a series of recommended actions that we should look at as an authority to try and bolster the authority's performance in this area. The key thing I will say before members sort of start reading the recommended actions is, and also look at the kind of green, yellow and red traffic light system that's within it, is that we believe as an authority we are in compliance with the code. We're not suggesting here there are any areas that we're fundamentally failing on. It's just a matter of strengthening those areas which we believe we're undertaking, where we could improve things a bit more. So in terms of compliance, the sort of the greens and the yellows within the report are really about high compliance and lower compliance rather than non-compliance. I think that's important for members to understand. So in each of the boxes on Appendix 2, what you've got is where some recommended actions were considered, and I'll just talk through some of those areas just to highlight for members what we're thinking about. In terms of the leadership of the authority, one of the things that was recommended in the FM code in terms of leadership and demonstrability of leadership was about benchmarking. And what we've said there after discussion with scrutiny is we would consider appropriate use of benchmarking where comparators could be established, because it was important to recognise that simple benchmarking is a pretty blunt tool. We can all draw comparisons between, for instance, different fire authorities, but unfortunately not all fire authorities are faced with the same challenges, the same geography, the same populations, the same demographic profiles. So it's difficult to just do simple comparisons. So it was about appropriate benchmarking where we could use it was thought to be the recommended approach. And we'd already identified an area ourselves within our procurement team where we were going to do some further work on contract management. So we're pretty good at doing our procurements and making sure we do all our procurements according to the current regulatory framework. Perhaps where we're slightly weaker is in terms of making sure that we're managing those contracts once they're in place on a regular basis through to their completion. In terms of the second one, which was about the role of the Chief Financial Officer, and this was really about the process by which we sign off things, particularly in respect of reports coming to Fire Authority and its associated committees. What we're going to look at there is a process where we can sort of guarantee that finance staff have had hands-on reports before they get into the draft and final stages, so that we can be assured that there are appropriate comments within reports that come forward. And obviously they are picked up in the meetings themselves, because there's always either myself or the head of finance is generally in the meetings anyway, so those comments would always be picked up. But it's about trying to put in place a system before the reports are finalised to ensure that happens. The next one was about again the leadership team and monitoring the balance sheet of the authority. This is quite a technical area, and we do this in a number of ways through our treasury management activities, and obviously our finance staff do it when they're drawing up the accounts, and our auditors, both internal and external, will look at aspects of this as well. But what we've decided to do is actually to start to develop the BMIS system, the Business Management Information System, to actually provide a finance dashboard that can look at some key indicators of the authority. So looking at trends of spending on both revenue and capital, things like that. So it's a more easy way for both members and the leadership team to actually look at aspects of that. So that's another area, and we've already started work on that, so it'll be continuation of that. Further down the list, under transparency, under L, I mentioned when Councillor Smith asked the question about consultation. One of the things that was suggested in the scrutiny group was that when consultation was undertaken, and particularly this was in relation to the budget consultation we were discussing at the time, that consultation was extended to all council members. Now, we attempted this year by asking our 10 constituent authorities to actually extend the consultation that we put out to all members. The difficult thing we've got is that it's difficult for the fire authority to actually maintain contact lists of all the constituent authorities members, clearly. So we are in the hands of authorities to actually sort of pass on as a messenger, really, those consultations. Now, I could do a straw poll in the meeting now and ask whether any members of the fire authority actually received from their host authority the consultation on budget. And the last time I asked this, I got blank looks all around the screen. I suspect that what happened is when we sent out the consultation to the 10 constituent authorities, they either didn't get the message or it wasn't acted upon in a timely fashion. And therefore, members of the authorities didn't get the consultation as planned. So we're going to have a think about how that needs to happen in future. Maybe there's a slightly different discussion or route. I think that was also supported by the fact that we had no individual members actually respond to the consultation as well, which suggests that not many of them actually did receive it. So that's something that we will continue to work on in terms of a process about how that can happen. Further down the list again, in terms of the leadership's actions and demonstrable decision making, really, one of the things that we've been looking at is to improve the consistency of our project documentation so that the evaluation, approval, monitoring and review of projects is done on a consistent basis. This isn't saying that project management doesn't happen. It does happen within the authority, but it's about the consistency of it so that the decisions are recorded in a kind of consistent manner, and that there's an agreed process by which all projects, depending on their size, of course, will be dealt with. So that's a piece of work which, again, we're gonna try and develop as we go forward to try and assist in compliance. So those are the areas that were picked up on within the code. Again, I can come back to the fact that those don't indicate non-compliance with the code. They simply are areas where we think we can probably improve things to assist ourselves. The report itself, Chairman, requests that the committee confirm adoption of the code. It is a requirement, and we will be required to adopt the code. Based on the comments also of the FAPM scrutiny group in terms of making ourselves more robust in a couple of areas. And I'll stop talking there, Chair, unless anybody else wants to ask questions or make any comments.
Thank you, Chris, for the comprehensive report.
If I may, Chairman.
Yeah, by all means, Val.
Only being a nitpicker, Chris. Under item N, the reference to the authority has no history of significant overspending. No, not significant, only the ones. And that was pre your time and everybody else's time, I would think, Chris.
I think there was one incident in particular. I think I just started, Val, at the time. It was in relation.
Then.
I think it was the year that we had industrial action, where we incurred significant expenditure under the old arrangements for dealing with that, and I think we did overspend that particular year. But again, we as an authority have a fairly robust reserve strategy, and those reserves are able to deal with these sorts of incidents. Part of the financial management and sustainability is ensuring that when these things happen, you can actually deal with them. And that's what we do.
Yeah, and in all fairness, that was shortly after the combination of the authorities as well, wasn't it? So, no, I'm only being true. Thank you, Chairman. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Val. Anybody else would like to say anything? I would like to say that as long as I've been a fire authority member, the financial practice in the governance has been excellent. Members are able to ask any questions and always get a positive answer, or if they can't supply an answer, they always get the follow-up. So I'm full of praise for the staff at the moment, what they were doing before this code come in. So I would like to do that. So anybody else got any other questions? If not, we'll go to the recommendations. No? But the recommendations that the committee confirm adoption of the code noting the comments of the FAPM Scrutiny Committee, or group, sorry. Somebody like to move a second that? Or
I'm happy to move.
I'll second that then. And Sarah, would you like to do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do the vote now. So, Councillor Colbrand.
Yes, I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Spencer, I can see you online. Oh, I'm getting a thumbs up. Thank you.
Yeah, putting a thumbs up, yeah.
Right. Councillor Drake.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Support.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
In favour.
Thank you. I believe that's all members have voted now, Chair, and that's unanimous.
Thank you, everyone, for that. We now move on to item 7, which is the Treasury Management Strategy 2022-2023, page 35. And I think, Lisa, that you were leading on that.
Yes, it's me. Good morning. This report presents the authority's annual Treasury Management Strategy. The authority is required to approve in advance of each financial year its governance arrangements for Treasury management activities. And this is detailed in Appendix 1 for members to view. So basically, the approval of the Treasury Management Strategy provides agreement of the control framework within which officers will operate to ensure that as far as possible the costs of borrowing are minimised and the investment opportunities are maximised and adequate liquidity is maintained so that payments can be made when they fall due, also whilst ensuring that risk is kept to a minimum. So this report contains capital prudential indicators showing the impact of capital investment decisions to assess if those decisions are affordable, prudent and sustainable. So the Treasury Management indicators set constraints within which the team should operate to ensure that decisions are made in accordance with good practice. So if we move on to Appendix 1, it's quite a lengthy report. It just explains more about Treasury Management and sets out that the first part of Treasury Management is to ensure that cash flow is adequately planned, with cash being available when it is needed and surplus monies being invested. And the second main function of Treasury Management is the funding of the authority's capital plans. So the contribution of the Treasury Management function is critical, as the balance of debt and investment operations ensure liquidity or the ability to meet spending commitments as they fall due, either on a day-to-day basis for the revenue budget or for larger capital projects. And SIPFA defines Treasury Management as the management of local authorities' borrowing, investments and cash flows, including its banking, money market and capital market transactions, the effective control of risks associated with those activities, and the pursuit of optimum performance consistent with those risks. So largely this is about money from both budgets, revenue and capital, how we manage that money to pay our bills when they fall due and to fund our capital investment activities. As members will be aware that we don't get funding for capital investment, that's all done through borrowing and grants and a small contribution from our annual revenue budget. So Treasury Management is tied massively with capital investment plans. Capital strategy was presented to members quite some time ago, and this links with that. The report goes on to state the Treasury Management reporting and sets out the 3 minimum statutory reporting requirements. The first report being this one. So this report sets out the capital plans and prudential indicators for the year coming. It also sets out a minimum revenue provision or MRP policy, and what that basically means is it's the repayment of debt for our capital investment. The Treasury Management Strategy, which sets out our investments and borrowings and how they are to be organised and indicators around those to add control and make sure that we operate within the constraints there, and an investment strategy. The second reporting requirement is a mid-year report which comes to members in September, telling you how we've progressed in the first 6 months of the year. And the final report is an outturn or backward-looking report, which is sometimes called review, and members receive that by December each year. And this committee is named as a scrutiny committee for Treasury management activities, indicators and limits, which recommends the full authority, the adoption of those things. So again, Treasury Management Strategy will cover two main areas, and that is capital issues. So that's the capital expenditure plans, a highline version of that, and the associated prudential indicators. Again, the MRP provision, or the MRP policy, which is key for our borrowing. Those two things will indicate to members whether we are in an over or under borrowing position, which is one of our key prudential indicators. That's a signal, a warning signal. Sometimes if you're consistently over borrowed, that you're not managing your money appropriately. And then the second part of the strategy moves on to Treasury management issues, which is the current Treasury position, so our banking, borrowing, investment position. The indicators, prospects for the interest rates, which domestically you will be interested in. What are the interest rates doing? Link our Treasury advisors do a lot of work in terms of scoping the horizon for us and checking out how the interest rates are going to move and putting together some projections for us, and they are contained within this report. The borrowing strategy, our policy on borrowing in advance of need, any debt rescheduling, which we don't intend to take, investment strategy, the credit worthiness of our counterparties, because we won't put our money with just anybody, and we definitely don't put all our eggs in one basket. And then the policy on use of external service providers. If we turn to page 44, that sets out in a nutshell our capital prudential indicators and our capital plans. So in 2.1 there, capital expenditure and financing, this prudential indicator is a summary of authorities' capital expenditure plans. Those agreed previously for 2021 and 21-22, which is the year now closing, and those then in advance for next year and 2 subsequent years. And members will see capital spending plans running along the third row there. Underneath capital expenditure plans, we've got how we are going to fund that. And then we've got the MRP repayments underneath those, which flows on to the closing capital financing requirement, or CFR. So the table summarises capital plans, how these plans are to be financed by capital and revenue resources, and any shortfall of resources will result in the borrowing need. And just to point out to members, we're in an under-borrowed position. We've always been in an under-borrowed position, and the projections show that we will move forward in an under-borrowed position, which means that if we needed to, we could borrow more. But at the moment, it indicates we are prudently managing our money, and there's no warning signals that we're over-borrowed. And that's it, really. So that's what the CFR does for us. It sets a prudential borrowing limit, which we try to stay below, and we do. On page 44, it gives more detail on the minimum revenue provision and which options we follow to be able to repay our debt. And page 46 provides more detail of our current portfolio for borrowing. So there's most of our borrowing is interest bearing, which means we pay interest on it, and that is taken out with the PWLB, which is the Public Works Loan Board. We've got some borrowing finishing next year with Salex, which is 0% interest bearing borrowing. So that's coming to an end, and they were funding our sustainable projects. And at the bottom, it gives you sort of an overall position. So starting 2022-23, we'll have a loan portfolio of £28 million there. And any new borrowing is detailed in that table. The weighted average interest rate of the above loan portfolio is 3.83%, which is low. The highest rate we have is 5.25 and the lowest is 1.02. Underneath gives members detail of the cash that we hold in bank. Currently, no investments are out, as we've tried to pay for our capital investment from our current cash reserves. So we've tried not to borrow. It gives some detail there at the bottom of the page about the current interest rates at Lloyds and Barclays are 0.1%. minus 0.1, which is nothing. At the moment, the bank rate has gone up to 0.5. If you take away the bank's margin, that results in 0.4% interest rate on any deposits in the bank moving forward. Page 47 gives an affordability indicator on the ratio of financing costs to our net revenue stream. And for 2021, members will see that 6% of our capital financing cost is 6% of our revenue budget. Next year, that's set to go up to 6.85, and again the year after. So we try to manage our borrowing so those costs don't become so big we've got to cut in other areas of our revenue budget, if that makes sense. Overleaf, we've got some indicators on our operational borrowing boundaries and the authorised limits. They're pretty much as they were last year. And then page 49 provides members with the prospects for interest rate. The table and the information there was put together by our associates Link Treasury. And it just sort of gives us a feel for if we want to borrow next year, which we will, the timing of that, you know, and what the value of that is likely to be, so we can build that into a revenue budget, you know, going forward. There's some information there on the bank rates and the borrowing strategy and borrowing in advance of need. Debt reschedule will not be carried out because at 3.83%, our net debt book is very low. And it gives some information there about the institutes that we would borrow from. Page 52 moves us on to the investment strategy, and it looks at the guidance that we have to follow and what our minimum acceptable criteria are going to be. So who we would put our money with, for how long we would put our money with them. And this methodology again is done by Link, and it's a colour-coded system, and it looks to maximise our return whilst minimising our risk. But at the same time, the key thing for us is that we maintain liquidity. So we work on the slide model, which is security first. Whoever we give our money to, we get it all back. Liquidity second, so making sure that we've got a ready run of cash there to pay our bills, and yield is final, it's last. Because as members probably know, the higher the yield, the higher the risk generally. But we work to that slide model. Overleaf then to page 55, it gives some benchmark information, how we're going to benchmark our investment performance going forward. And then we move on to the appendices then, which give more detail on the economic background, some credit and counterparty risk in regards to our investment strategy, the Treasury Management Scheme of Delegation, and the role of our Treasurer. And that's about it. If there's any questions.
Well, I must say, Lisa, it is a very comprehensive report, and I can see your passion about it. And
really?
Susan, you'd like to come in?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Morgan.
Hi. The interest rates have been so poor at the moment, it makes sense to keep the money in current accounts because you weren't gaining anything. Now the interest rates have started to creep back up. Would we be looking to put in more reserves into higher deposit savings?
Yeah, I think we would work with Link, so they would scan our options for us and come back with some safe options, and we'd look to see when we could put some money out, because at this point in time we only get 0.4% back on anything, but anything more than that is worth considering. So the timing of that and the duration of that is very much down to our cash flow budget. We put it when we've got a revenue and our capital budget in place. From that, we do a cash flow budget, so it depends when we fall low or high in that throughout the year. And there's many things that will impact that, which will be retirements. So, you know, we could at this moment in time think that we could invest in November, get to November, and we've had a dozen retirements, and that completely wipes out our cash reserves, you know. So it's a constant thing. We monitor our cash flow weekly at this moment in time. But yeah, we definitely would be looking to put them out. But first of all, we'd be looking to minimise our borrowing before we invested.
No, exactly, because it costs more. And then back on page 62, we were talking about the influence of the problems and the market might cause with the invasion of Ukraine. Will that actually affect us, or have we got anything that really would be linked to this conflict and to the Ukraine?
I mean, there's probably going to be a ripple effect on interest rates across Europe. I would have thought, but we don't lend and we don't borrow from anywhere outside of the UK. Everything that we do is within the UK. So we don't take any borrowing, and we don't have any borrowing at all.
It's just a reassurance, that it's obviously that it wouldn't affect any cash flows or anything because it's investment. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Just to come in on that, Chair, the obvious impact of that is it is affecting stock market valuations. So there is a possible effect on pension funds. So there's a kind of knock-on effect in that direction, not directly on the Fire Authority, but to the pension funds that obviously are looking for returns to actually support the pensions of the Fire Authority. So there is an issue there.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you both.
Any other questions?
Can I ask, Chairman?
Yeah.
On the yes, just an explanation, please. On page 44, the capital prudential indicators, the minimum revenue provision now for the PFI in 2024-25, it goes down to minus 91. Does that mean we now are the proud possessors?
Not quite yet. We've got a few years left to run. I think about 5 years left to run on PFI. What you see there is the repayment of that PFI debt. So for it to reduce, it is about right. So we don't own it yet, but it is on our balance sheet, and that is the repayment of that debt on our balance sheet.
So why do we see that considerable drop in that year? Because we're down to minus 91.
It's just the way the repayments work and the way the interest rates have worked out. You will see a drop in it. It's picked up from the modelling.
Right. Yes, you just say it intrigued me, that one. Thank you. Thanks very much. Because take ages to write these.
Well?
It's I always forget. When do we actually acquire? Well, when would the authority actually acquire the PFI? That building. When does it?
It's about 5 years, Councillor Smith, but I can check.
No, it's all right. Don't worry. I just get confused over the date.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Anyway, Val. The only question that I'm looking, if there's a delay in any grant funding, does that affect the management strategy? Anything?
Any delay. So, like I said, when we put the cash flow budget together, after we've set the revenue and the capital budget, So we put it together based on estimates of timing. So if we've got quarterly grants being repaid and they don't occur, one of our biggest grants is our pension funding. That's a big one. And if that wasn't to come in, last year I think it was about 14 million. So if that wasn't to come in when we think it is, that would be an issue. We'd have to respond to that and take action. Yeah. The last few years, Welsh Government have they've worked well with us, and they've moved the funding of pensions forward from August, which is 5 months through the financial year, to April, which is about right for me, because that grant funding is for that year. So people start retiring onwards, so it seems right to me to bring that funding forward. But they've worked well with us. So yeah, big things like that. We can take small shocks, but really big, significant deposits not coming in, we'd put an action plan in place to be able to mitigate against that.
Well, it's nice to see they're working, and we haven't had to face that situation then.
Yeah.
Any other questions by anybody for Lisa? That was an excellent report, Lisa. Lovely bedtime reading, I must admit. But well, if somebody like to propose and second it, and then we go to the recommendations.
Propose.
Right. And then the recommendation that the Finance, Audit and Performance Management Committee note the following and recommend for Fire Authority approval the Treasury Management Strategy Statement, the Capital Prudential Indicators and Minimum Revenue Provision Policy, the Borrowing Policy and Treasury Indicator Limits, Annual Investment Strategy, and the Treasurer to update strategies and policies as necessary throughout the year.
Yep.
So anybody would like to second that now? It's been proposed.
I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Sarah, would you like to do a vote, please?
The Chair will do the vote now. So, Councillor Cole-Brown?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans?
In favour.
Councillor Smith?
In favour.
You and Councillor White?
In favour.
Thank you. That was again unanimous, Chair.
Thank you everybody for your contribution. If we move on to item 8, which is the Revenue Monitor Report 2021 to 2022. That's on page 69. I think that's Lisa again.
Fortunately it is, yes. Thank you, Chair. So the Revenue Monitoring Report, it provides detail of the annual revenue budget, revenue grants, revenue activities, and associated information for the year ending the 31st of March 2022. So this report provides an update of the major changes affecting the revenue budget since FAPM committee on the 13th of December 2021. And it includes 5 appendices. Appendix 1 provides the original budget, revised budget, authorised payments, grant funding actuals for the year. Appendix 2 charts the difference in projections from this to previous meetings. Appendix 3 provides members with a view of the impact of the under or overspend position of the revenue budget at the end of the year on the reserve position, reserves which are held on the balance sheet. And then appendices 4 and 5 provide more detail on our grant activities and the impact on the revenue budget. So if we sort of have a look at Appendix 2 while I take you through the report, that's usually quite useful. So the forecast is a £2 million underspend for this year closing the 31st of March 2022, and that comprises 826,000 underspend on employee related budgets, 288,000 on non-employee related budgets, 231 of additional income that's been received during the year, in addition to the 662 of additional grants since initial budget setting. So these things have added up to an overall increase since previous reporting of 491,000. The biggest contributor to the change since last report is capital financing costs. And I'll get there in a bit, but I'll just lead you through sort of according to convention through the Appendix 2, starting with employee costs. So there's more costs in the employee band than we previously anticipated. And this is to do with the continuation of supernumerary arrangements we have in place. There's been a small increase as a result of job evaluation. Whole-time recruits course numbers have increased. The number of recruits, not the number of courses, have increased, and some minor allowances have been extrapolated to the end of the year. Underneath there's some establishment figures which show the budgeted and the actual position, and I think members can see there that we're under on all but one area, which is control. And underneath there, that shows then the leavers and the joiners for the current year. At the bottom of page 70, we've got the impact of the travel and subsistence forecasts and mileage, and those things are indicative of where we are in the pandemic. There's an underspend there that's offset the increase in salary costs above. And then we move on to premises costs. So there's less costs than we previously reported to do with wide area network charges. There's a small decrease there of 21,000 in the forecast. There's slightly more in the training forecast at 26,000, and that's not additional costs, that's just the way we treat in transactions. We've grossed out costs from income, so it looks like it's more, but there's an increase in income down below 26,000. There's some small increases in supplies and services, adding up to the 81,000 decrease in overspend. So that is down to furniture budget. We're not spending on furniture the way we anticipated, as people are still working in a blended fashion as a result of the pandemic. Storage that we anticipated spending on hasn't taken place this year. We've sort of sought on-site sort of solutions to our storage issues, and there's a 31,000 underspend in operational equipment, in addition to 20,000 on promotional activities based in the community safety department. And those things are beginning to pick up speed now. So next year we shouldn't see those things reoccurring. In contracted services, there's 52,000 less costs in the forecast than we previously reported. And then we move on to the biggie, which is the capital financing costs. These have decreased by 272,000 since previous reporting, which is the biggest change. So the decrease in anticipated costs is due to reduction in the minimum revenue provision, the MRP, which we just discussed in the Treasury report. So these charges are based on what our capital investment costs. So there's less capital projects being completed this year. As a result, there's less MRP charge. The MRP charge is correlated directly to the capital budget. The capital monitoring report shows a reduction of 3.5 million since previous forecasts, and we'll move on to that report after this. So that 3.5 has resulted in that £272,000 saving in capital financing costs. Income below is the second biggest contributor there. There's £265,000 of additional income. 205,000 of that is additional grant income. In addition to that, training grossing out from above, and there's £34,000 of other various smaller bits. So all of that adds up to an underspend of 2 million and a movement since last report to this report of 491,000. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody got any questions for Lisa? I have. With the 2 million underspend, I wish it was, underspend, will there be any will it be affected by any future grant funding, or will that make us how can I put it, difficult for us to have more funding, or does that come into the equation?
The indicators are not at this moment in time. No.
Important to recognise and stress, Steve, the a significant part of the reason for the underspend in the current year is down to an over provision for pay awards in the current year. And when we've set the budget for next year, we've recognised that, and we've probably gone with a pretty conservative estimate of pay awards next year, which will possibly be exceeded. So we would need some of that money to actually resolve that situation next year. So we've done that with open eyes. We know that's going to happen. So some of those reserves may well get used up in next financial year.
No, that's brilliant. It's just that people from outside might see there's a substantial amount, we're carrying over, and what we're going to utilise it for, which you explained there. So, no, that's brilliant. Thanks. Any other questions for Lisa or Chris?
Yeah, can I just...
Yeah, come on, Susan.
Sorry, Catherine, you just put yourself on mute.
Sorry. Can I just have clarification on the third-party payments, contracted services? The big overspend on that. Have we got, just more of an update on...
So this area is this is to do with our contracted services, so it'd be legal, property driven.
Okay.
It depends what occurs during the year, in terms of our legal issues, any cases arising. Some of them are very difficult to anticipate. Right. If you wanted more detail than that, I can get that to you separately.
Only just looking, because it was a big overspend, and obviously,
yes.
just to see exactly what it was broken down with on it. Yeah. Just a bit of clarification. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, thanks for that, Susan. Anybody else? No, we're all quiet. Ooh.
No.
If you propose and second it, the recommendations are that the Finance, Audit and Performance Management Committee note and agree the report content.
Yes. Happy to move.
Yeah, everybody second it? Well, I'll second it if nobody does, but... Yes.
Also, Chairman, can I thank the officers for talking us through these reports, which I find really helpful, because I struggle.
No, I thank you for that, Val, because I totally agree with you. They're quite complex, and then if any questions we raise are always answered, and they're explained quite easily. Yeah. Thank you.
Because you look at something at home and you read it yourself, then you reread it, and you think, well, no, that can't be that. And it's a simple explanation when it's talked through. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to take a roll call now? Vote.
Take a vote, yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Colbrand.
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Drake.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Support.
Thank you. And Councillor White. Councillor Forrest. I can't see or hear Councillor White responding at the moment.
Well, yes, I'm saying that's like I couldn't press my mic on then. I was pressing too many times. I pressed it on and off. I was getting a bit too excited. I was going on and off. Just calm down. Apologies, but I'm in favour.
Thank you, Councillor White.
Thank you, David. So everybody voting now, Sarah? Unanimous. No?
I think so, and that's unanimous, Chair.
Yeah, thank you everyone for that. We now move on to item 9, which is a Capital Monitoring Report 2021 to 22, and that starts from page 85. And that's Lisa again, by look of it.
Thank you. Okay, so the Capital Monitoring Report provides detail of the capital budget, transactions, financing arrangements to date, and the forecast to the 31st of March 2022. So this report, again, much like the revenue report, provides an update of the major changes affecting the capital budget since we last met on the 13th of December 2021. It presents two appendix. Appendix 1 illustrates budget information for all approved capital investment plans. In summary, Appendix 1 presents the total budget at 8.3 for the year, 8.3 million for the year, and the forecast outturn budget overspend and slippage is 3.9. So that's the forecast. 6,066 is the budget overspend and 5.1 million slippage, respectively. So a detailed narrative ensues, which provides an update of how those figures have been arrived at. So forecast spending on capital schemes is reduced since previous reporting from 7.4 million to 3.9. As I just summarised at the end of the revenue budget, that's a drop of 3.5 million in capital expenditure forecast for this year. And the majority of this is attributable to the vehicle replacement programme. And there's some smaller reductions of 606,000 in equipment and 333,000 in property. Appendix 2 provides some detail of our grant-funded initiatives, of which there are two. That's on page 95, and how they help fund our investment. So the following provides a narrative explanation in support of Appendix 1. So on page 86, we're looking at property. I find it useful to look at Appendix 1 when we're going through the narrative. So for property, there's a forecast expenditure and budget slippage of 1.6 million. So that's forecast, and 2.3 million of slippage respectively. There is a net overspend of 803,000 in this area, and this is driven largely by 5 projects. The biggest of these is the Urban Search and Rescue, or the USAR facility at Whitchurch. This wasn't budgeted. We've got 300,000 in. All that is set to be funded by Welsh Government grant funding. So even though we didn't have it in the budget, it's unbudgeted, it's adding to overspend, it is being funded. The financing of that is not ours to find. We've got on-call station project that came in during the year, as members are aware. Refurbishments at Pontypridd and Tonopandi stations, and then lastly, our investment in the electrical vehicle infrastructure. So these are offset by small underspends in Penarth Station and planned and preventative works. Pontypridd is now complete with work on the new steel frame tower, done early December. So we're awaiting a final invoice for that. Also, Tonopandi is completed with outstanding fees for retention due in July. And members are now aware of the changes with Newin. Newin, the £1.954 million of slippage is all attributable to Newin. So even though we've got a large slippage figure, it is for that investment there. We've instructed our agent to continue searching for an alternative site to Newin. And this work will have an approximate cost of 10,000 in searches, but the remaining budget, as discussed, is slipped forward. On-call station storage project has ramped up somewhat. So there's been an increase of £100,000 in our forecast spend in this project for this year. And we've got a new property professional coming in to progress that work for us. And that work will span about 2 financial years. We'll update members on that as we travel through time. The last bit we have on property is the electrical vehicle infrastructure. So members will be aware in December 2020, there was investment in electrical vehicle chargers at headquarters, and we've sought further funding for 5 strategic stations at Maesteg, Mindy, Aberbargoed, Aberdeen and Chepstow, in addition to charging facilities at Cardiff Gate. And the week leading up to this meeting, we've had agreement, not just in principle, but formal agreement for Welsh Government that they will fund that investment in our infrastructure. Moving on to the vehicle replacement programme, the forecast expenditure and budget slippage are 1.1 million and 2.3 million respectively. And there are a number of projects that have been slipped into the next financial year due to confirmed delivery times beyond March 31st. As members will be aware, some of the technical vehicles that we have, they've got quite prolonged build times. Generally, nothing can be completed within 26 weeks. We have water ladders and RTs come in 2 pieces, chassis first, and then the build takes place later. So we've got our water ladder, 4 of our completed water ladders are coming in at the end of March, and by June we'll have the remaining vehicles from this year's programme being delivered. I've spoken with the fleet engineer this morning, and because of the delays we're experiencing as a result of the pandemic and Brexit, orders for the 2022-23 vehicle replacement programme have already been placed, so we don't face these delays going forward. Rescue tender is much the same. This is the delay on the delivery years meant the budget of 705,000 has been slipped into 2022-23. And then lastly, the van or operational estate cars, this is our light vehicle programme. The original budget of 300,000 was to accommodate replacement of our traditional fossil fuelled vehicles. We've put an application for funding to have these updated to electrical vehicles. We haven't had confirmation of that yet. The electric vehicles are more than twice the price of our traditionally fuelled vehicles, and there's a massive waiting list for delivery of those vehicles. So unfortunately that budget will have to be slipped to accommodate delivery in the new financial year. And lastly, an update on the prime mover budget. In regards to the USAR facility that we discussed in property, the prime mover budget has been utilised to fund the additional costs of our USAR facility. When we started scoping that facility, I recall the costs coming in at around 600,000. Again, as a result of the pandemic, building costs, the cost of materials for buildings have increased exceptionally. So that money from that project was needed to fund those additional costs, which Welsh Government agreed to do, and so that has been delayed, that project for prime movers there. On to operational equipment, this budget heading is forecast expenditure of 665,000, a budget underspend of 159,000, and budget slippage of 539,000. And this is largely as a result of 2 projects, which is the cutting equipment for hydraulic equipment and cutting equipment for rescue tenders. The preparatory work for procurement has taken longer than we anticipated, but those are both underway and they will be spent in the first quarter of the new financial year. There's some updates there on the wet weather gear and the structural fire kit. The structural fire kit project has come to an end. The underspend that's detailed there is as a result of the cost per fire kit was less than we budgeted for. We've got a budget on something, and the numbers of the fire kits was reduced as well. IT equipment, so the updated forecast is 518,000. There is 222,000 of slippage, resulting in an overspend of 21,000, and that's largely driven by end user computer replacement project. So the implications for the changes in these capital schemes are identified in the table at the bottom of page 89. So the forecast expenditure of 3.9 million, slippage of 5.1 million has resulted in a net 666,000 £89,000 overspent. So the project at the bottom of 89 shows that the gross overspend is 947,000, which is offset by 280,000 of other budget overspends and 357,000 of grants, leaving the authority to find 309,000, and we've done that by reprioritising our capital schemes. Members will be aware there's a number of capital projects detailed within the report that aim to make South Wales Fire Rescue Service more sustainable. We've discussed the electric vans and the electric vehicle chargers that we are placing throughout our infrastructure. So the end of year position is 3,854,000 of capital investment and 5.1 million slippage into the new year. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think you probably needed for a breather, Lisa, this morning. Thanks for that report. It just, as always, comprehensive. Anybody would like to ask Lisa any questions regarding that report?
Only a bit of curiosity, if I may. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Morgan, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, go on, pal. Yeah. Yeah, well, go ahead if you want to ask anything.
Come on. Any indication as to why the site at New Inn didn't proceed? You know, just no communication at all.
Nothing. The last update we had was that our proposal, or the edit terms of our proposal, had gone through to board, and that was the last we heard of it, unless ACFO Rose has got an update.
Yeah, since we were previously informed, the Chief Fire Officer has sent a letter to the board expressing our concerns of the lack of dialogue we've had, with an attempt to try and get that dialogue going, or to have a definitive yes or no answer from them. So we have written to them within the last fortnight, and I guess we're waiting a response.
There's a couple more roundabouts just up the road with ground around them.
Yeah, when we done the initial assessment of suitable sites, we did look at the wider area, and there was two factors. There was no appropriate land available, and the other one, that site did provide us with quite a good response for our vehicles in that area. So we'll wait to hear, I guess, from see if we get some correspondence following the letter we've sent to them.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at ground from a different angle. I came down the road the other day. I was struck by the huge industrial development that's occurred on what was, well, opposite the old BNS site, the ICI site. The tremendous number of sheds that have gone up there. I was amazed. But, no, thank you very much. Fund system.
Yeah, that's in my thing, so I didn't want to get involved in that one. The other thing I was going to ask, are we having any difficulty with any procurement? I know the vehicles, particularly, it's longer for the builds and everything. But what about any operational equipment? Are we up to date with that, or because there seems to be a delay in procurement for some reason? Anybody got any answers on that?
The delay with the cutting equipment, the two cutting equipment projects, that's just an internal process issue. I think they had to get it right because it's quite a highly valued contract and it's got to go out. There wasn't a sort of shortage then of the equipment. It was an internal process issue. But I'd say the appliance delivery lead times and the bills are both contributing to the vehicle issue that we've got, as you well know. And I think with the electrical vehicles, we don't know what's normal yet for a delivery lead time on those, because they're so new anyway. They've gained momentum during the pandemic, haven't they?
Yeah, and not only that, you're right in what you're saying. The cost is double for what a normal, another fuel vehicle,
But I think for each diesel van, we would have budgeted 30,000. the equivalent electric version is 71,000. So it is more than double, isn't it? No, it's quite a lot of money there. So the application to Welsh Government has gone for the additional cost.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. You know, they want to turn greener, but you know, it's a dramatic cross. You know, for everyone. But yeah, no, thank you for that report, Lisa. As always, it's very comprehensive, and you deserve a couple after that. The recommendation.
Can I ask another not a flippant question, Chairman? Under the vehicle replacement programme, there's a reference there to a truck, slide deck crane, and all I've written alongside was, does it require design of? Because this seems to be a minimal cost. I mean, 150,000 is neither here nor there, is it? The tender received no bids, but does it require design? Is the design there? Because I'm just surprised that there's nobody that's got the initiative to want to build.
On my own personal experience, well, sometimes there's a high-ab, it's called. It's a crane which has to sit within the body structure.
Yeah, I thought so.
It may need a special bill for whatever the service decides, whatever sizing for their equipment or things they have to move. So there may be specifics within that because of the crane.
Yeah, no, I just naively thought that this is a project that could be taken on by an individual firm. Okay, thank you.
Unless Debbie wants to add anything more to that, I don't know.
No, sorry, Councillor, I've got nothing more to add. What page exactly is it on?
Oh, sorry, on page 87.
87. 87.
Yeah, 2 seconds.
As far as I'm aware, Councillor Smith, this is the second time that we've gone out for this work. I don't know what the detail is as to why we're not getting any responses. Major non-responses.
I'm only going from the experience of what equipment you've got now with this particular crane and the body type structure on it. So yeah.
Just seeing the sort of project that a smaller enterprise could take on, or did it require design? So no, I think thank you very much.
Yeah, you know, going from experience, you're very limited in the market of what people do well. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyway, for the recommendations, the members note the budget and progress for capital schemes. A few alterations identified in Appendix 1 and associated movements in funding, which Lisa has elaborately told everyone. So we're going to have a move and a seconder, and then we'll have a vote on that, please.
Move it. Second.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah. Down to you now, Sarah, for the vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans?
In favour.
Thanks very much. Councillor Smith?
Support.
Thank you. And Councillor White?
In favour.
Thank you. And again, Chair, that was unanimous.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. The next one's a report for information on item 10. It's the Audit Actions Report Health Check 2021 to 2022, quarter 3. And that's on page 97. And Sarah leading on that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll members through this one. So the Audit Action Report provides members with the opportunity to view the details on the progress made on the audit actions, which arise from 4 different sources for us within the service. Those being internal audits carried out by TIAA, also corporate schemes and government circulars, operational assurance peer reviews, and Audit Wales thematic reviews. The detail contained within this report is held within our business management information system and is correct as of quarter 3, i.e. up to the end of December 2021. Moving on to the next pages of the report, page 100 shows you the audits which we are reporting against. And then on page 101, you can see that there are 13 audit actions still within date, and 13 actions are currently overdue. Of those actions that are overdue, they're all on a green or an amber status, which means they just require some attention. And for members' information, these audit actions which are overdue are the same 13 audit actions which are referred to in agenda item 40 at page 178. Just to provide that linkage there for members. The following pages then show the 13 overdue internal audit actions up to page 105, and then from pages 106 onwards, you've then got the commentary against the audit actions which are still ongoing and within their original target date. So this is for members' assurance that the audit actions are being reviewed and managed throughout the organisation. Happy to take questions. However, I probably won't know all of the detail on the specific audits, but I'm happy to assist members where I can.
Anybody got any questions? It's an excellent report. I've read it, but there's so much content in it. I think we take it for granted the information we get from you lot.
So, Chairman, the red blob was associated with safeguarding, so those issues have now been resolved or are in the process of being resolved.
Yes. Dowie, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah. That's the question I was going to ask if nobody did. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, we had a similar question at the pre-agenda meeting. And what the safeguarding actions is a recent strategic actions we've developed, and we've put them on there because we now feel ready to progress those actions rather than just keep the working group going without you having visibility of where we are. Those actions are there. A lot are in red, but they are all being progressed. I should be able to bring a report back or safeguarding report back that shows progress against those actions. So they're there to give us clear targets on things to work to, and you as a fire authority visibility on where we are and how we progress in our safeguarding strategy.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. The awareness is there and the work is in progress. So thank you, Derek.
Yeah, no, that's a question I was going to ask anyway, which I raised in the pre-meeting. Yeah, but excellent. Thank you very much for that, Val. Any other questions in that audit action report?
No.
No. So I think we note that one, Sarah, don't we?
Yes, we can note that one. If we can have movers and seconders, that would be
Yeah, I'm just going to say, can we have a mover and a seconder, please?
Happy to move.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you. Right, we then move on to item 11, which is a business plan action report, health check 2021 to 22, and that's quarter 3, and that's page 115. And I think that's you again, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will start off this report with the actions within our strategic and our business plans, and then I'll hand over to Dowie Rose to talk about performance against our strategic indicators.
That's great, thank
you. Members will see that the actions within our business planning system support our 8 strategic themes. And within the content of this report, there is a narrative of our performance against the tasks which have been allocated to support those strategic themes. If I move members to page 119 of the report, they'll see the scorecard, which indicates for each of our 8 strategic themes, the position of the tasks which support those themes. And of the 264 tasks within the system, we can see that the vast majority of those are amber and green within the RAG status, with 12 of those being indicated as red, which will obviously be have more management attention and action applied to them to enable them to support the strategic themes. Moving through the report from pages 120 on to 141, you'll then see a more qualitative narrative against the actions that we're doing across the entire organisation to support each of those strategic themes. I don't intend to read through that in detail because I'm sure members have digested this prior to the meeting. So that is our progress on the actions within our business plans, and I'm quite happy to hand over to Dowie now to talk about the performance monitoring on the indicators.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Chair, Councillors. I appear to have the wrong set of papers. I've got the agenda papers, so my number is slightly out. Can you just confirm for me, Sarah, that the performance monitoring report with the cover photograph starts on page 143 on your records?
Yes, that's correct, Dowie. That's the same as my paper.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, good morning, members. As you know, we report on 7 strategic indicators to Welsh Government on a regular basis, and annually we report on those performances. As an operational department and service delivery department with business fire safety, community safety, we review these our performance on a regular basis, formally on a quarterly basis, and that enables us to actually target our community safety initiatives, our response initiatives, to reduce risk within our communities. And this report just will highlight our current performance up to end of Q3. If you look on page 144 to 145 includes the introduction and summary, and then when we go to 146, members will see a sundial giving a summary of our performance. As you can see from the indicator, one of the indicators has not met its target, and I'll go through the detail of each of them in a minute. 2 of the indicators are within 5% of their targets, although they have not met the targets we set, and 4 of the indicators are within their target and have met those targets. If I then go to 147, I will talk through each of the targets individually. So you can see from total fires attended, it is below the target. However, as you can see from the bottom bullet point, 71% of all fires are deliberate. What I can assure the Fire Authority, we are working on a number of areas and at a number of levels to reduce those deliberate fires. As you're aware, the group manager responsible for each unitary authority area sits on the public service boards, and they work actively with everybody within the unitary authority, others, the police and other agencies, to reduce deliberate fire setting in your communities. We have national strategies like Downs Glow, which is targeted at wildfires, grass fires, and we work with the police and others with that strategy. Healthy Hillsides is a number of areas in the RCT area, Merthyr area, and that's specifically working with Natural Resources Wales and others. So that is targeting, again, wildfires. And then we have also the work that my staff are doing in developing their community risk management plans to reduce fires in each of the 10 unitary authority areas. Also throughout the pandemic, we've done modified home safety checks. So we've been able to, where people have been reluctant to let us into their home, or it's been inappropriate to go into the home to give fire safety advice, we've had a number of means where we can do a modified home safety check, either over the phone or by dropping equipment to their front door so they can install smoke alarms and other safety equipment to make them safer. So as you can see from the first indicator, total fires attended, within target, but 71% deliberate. But I can assure you we're doing everything we can to reduce the total number of fires even more in the areas that I've just identified. If we then move on to total false alarms, we've seen an increase in total false alarms, but only a slight increase of 4%, and it's within that 5% tolerance. That's why it's indicated as amber. Pleasing to see the reduction in hospital, but that may be due to the change of behaviour through the as COVID has hit the number of people that are going to hospital, the changes to visitors and etc., and the behaviour of people in hospitals. But it's something we will work on, and our business fire safety team have got an unwanted fire team and our fire signal team that are working with business partners, particularly hospitals, schools, residential homes, to actually reduce the number of unwanted fire signals. Also, we have seen an increase in the number of false alarms occurring within the domestic dwelling setting. We see this as a positive. People are calling us, even if they've had, say, extinguished the fire, or they've had a smell of smoke in their home, or they can smell something. It gives us the opportunity, even if it's a false alarm, the fire's out, extinguished, or they're unsure, it gives us the opportunity to educate the homeowners in their property, and where appropriate, to either fit or advise them to fit safety equipment such as smoke alarms, heat detectors, carbon monoxide detectors and others. So yes, there's a slight rise, but something that the team are managing, and hopefully we can see improvements with the work the business fire safety team are doing and the operational teams are doing. If I move on to total RTCs attended, as you can see from RTCs, again, this is below our target, but what we can see, it is increasing, and this is in line with the as the restrictions are lifted of COVID, what we are seeing is the numbers slightly increasing, and I dare say as the restrictions even become less and less, more people are travelling to work, less home working, we will unfortunately see the number of RTCs increase. Again, the flip side of that is, as restrictions decrease, we have the opportunity then to increase our education in relation to our RTC reduction. I work with Go Safe Cymru, initiatives such as the Domino, Mega Drive, and other areas, and the options that we do with the police. It gives us the opportunity to work with either youths before they become drivers, young drivers and drivers on the road where they're identified, where we go through our options initiative to increase the awareness of the dangers of road traffic collisions. So we will have an increase in our activity preventative work as the restrictions are reduced. However, sadly, it's likely we will see an increase in RTCs within our communities. When we look at total other special service calls, this has changed. And again, this is behaviours over COVID. As you can see from the figures there, the assisting other agencies have increased by around 42%, assisting the police and ambulance by 29%, and our bariatric incidents has increased. Our assistance given there is 15%. I think behaviours and its demands on other services has increased, and I think it's right and proper where we can support our communities and the other agencies. We do it where it's appropriate. Again, I can give you assurance we're in continual discussions with police, ambulance and other agencies to ensure that we only use our resources where it is appropriate, and where it is most effective. So although we see a rise and we think it's right and proper to assist other agencies, ambulance and police, we continually review it, continually have dialogue with them to ensure that our resources are used appropriately. Moving on to total death and injuries in fire, and if you don't mind, I'll wrap it up with total accidental deaths and injuries in fire. The slight increases that we have had there, the green, but what we've seen an increase in the number of injuries. The slight increase corresponds to the slight 1% increase in accidental dwelling fires. So although it's a slight increase, it's within our target, green. We do see the 1% increase in accidental dwelling fires has impacted on the number of injuries within our communities. And again, the assurance I can give members is we learn from all the sad occurrences of injuries, fatalities in fires and accidental fires, to learn from them, to have a more targeted approach on our preventative work and our community safety work. What I am seeing within the operational environment is teams now, as restriction lifted, are revising their community risk management plans to actually go more into the community as they're more accepted by the community as COVID restrictions are lifted, so they can actually educate the people, get into the most targeted groups, the most vulnerable groups in our communities, to actually give them the preventative support that they need to reduce the risk of fire in their homes. And finally, looking at the percentage of dwelling fires confined to the room of origin, this is only 1.2% outside our target. Again, it's amber, and again it has increased from previous year, but not to target, but still a good performance from where we are, and generally within the tolerance of where we are, around the 80-85% of that target. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from members for Dewi? Oh. First of all, can the actually each borough's ones go out to each member so they can pass that on?
Yeah, thanks for picking me up on that. The other thing I should have added was, as you can see from the pages 150 to 157, there's the unitary authority data. They should, if they've not been done already, they will be circulated to each of the members.
No, thank you for that. The other thing is, do you see us coming out of the pandemic now? Could be any fluctuation in the figures for Q4 regarding fires, regarding RTCs?
Yeah. So what I've seen from, if you recollect, I updated Fire Authority last month on our projected targets, and it's very much similar to Q3. There's nothing that has come out different in Q4 at the moment to indicate, a spike or a drop in any of those indicators.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the report. Anyway, I think it's important that particularly our authorities and our areas see the tremendous work that's going on behind the scenes, and this is a good way of, making sure that they're aware of that within their communities. So thank you very much for that report, Dewi. Anyway, but
can I have 2 penners, please, Chairman?
Yes, by all means, Val. Come in.
Thanks. I wondered if it was possible, Derry, because surprised that the fires in Monmouth had gone up to 7% above target, and I wondered if there were any particular areas that were producing these problems. And also I noticed with Monmouth, the statistics, we don't meet our target, but the statistics are very poor for road traffic incidents and special instances. When you look at the chart, it looks good. We're below 14% below target. What it boils down to is that road traffic incidents in Monmouthshire have increased considerably. And there's a great concern to me and to everybody, I suppose. And then I look at the comment on page 121 of the proposals there. I have a question in my mind. It refers back to Sarah's report there, Go Save Cymru, as to how well that really works with authorities and with the police. And I found quite interesting as well, looking at the statistics, poor statistics for Monmouthshire, and yet there's a Go Save Cymru, a proposal and a scheme they're trying out of actually removing speed cameras and having a pleasant little chat with somebody. I really have a big question about 1.3 as to how it's working. So very disappointed, Chairman, from Monmouth's point of view that we have to do so much work with people who crash their cars. Also, there was a reference, it would have been in my own council, an appreciation of the work of the fire authority taking folks to hospital every now and then. Got a great criticism of the ambulance service, but I think the problem is more so at the hospitals. The system can't work if you've got them stockpiled at the hospitals, your ambulances. We have issues. So thank you for letting me have my little rant, Chairman. But I am concerned about road safety.
Yeah, and Dewi's going to come back in with an answer. I knew he would.
Yeah, no. What I can do, councillor, if you'd like to discuss, your particular, and that goes for all councillors, if they wish to discuss the initiatives in their area in a bit more detail, I can give you the names of your group managers for those areas, or get the group manager to contact you to let you know the discussions they're having at a local level.
I would appreciate that, Dewi.
Thank you very
If
much.
you could put it through an email to me. I have a great concern, and I realise why the concern, because I have unfortunately witnessed or had involvement in some appalling incidents, and once they're in your mind, you never lose them. So thank you very much. Thanks, folks.
I'll get the group manager to email you, councillor. Yeah.
So thank you, Val, and thank you, Dewi, for that response. Any other questions you need to ask Sarah or Dewi? No? The report is for noting. If somebody can propose and second it.
Move, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody want to second it, or I'll second it? There's no problem.
I'll second, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Right. If you now move on to item 12, Departmental Risk Register Report Health Check 2021 to 22, quarter 3. That is page 161. I think I'll say it again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll walk members through this report as well. So this report identifies for members the departmental risks that have been identified around the organisation. These sit separately and independently to the strategic risks register that I know members scrutinise on an annual basis. The purpose of these departmental risks are for various departments to identify what challenges they have in their area, and we are building a mechanism whereas heads of service will review these risks on a regular basis to identify if it's a common theme throughout the organisation or where there are ways that we can assist partner departments in alleviating or mitigating those risks as and when they can. Councillor Morgans will be familiar with this report because it's already been reviewed by the FAPM scrutiny group. And all of the risks that we've identified on our departmental risk register are identified there on page 163. And they are listed in risk rating order there on that report, on that page for you there on 163. the following pages, 165 onwards, then identify the comments at Q3 against each of those particular risks, and you can see their performance there. So this is for members' awareness, to be aware of the departmental risks that we are reviewing as an organisation, and to provide members assurance that we have a mechanism to escalate departmental risks, should that be necessary, onto our strategic risk register, and or demote risks from our strategic risk register to the departmental risk register, should that be appropriate. Again, members, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you've got around those specific risks. It may be a more generalised answer, as I'm not necessarily the risk owner for many or any of these items, but more than happy to discuss.
Anybody got any questions for Sarah?
I love the bold comments in the report about the pensions. It's okay, Chairman, it's just made me smile reading there's a lack of provision, knowledge and understanding of pension and tax legislation. By heck there is, but it's not our fault.
No, funny enough, Val, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. All I was going to ask is, what sort of update in a response would we look at with that? I know perhaps it is regular training, but how would that factor out the alleviation from the red? That's the only thing I was going to ask.
We are sort of, with the pensions, endeavouring to process. I mean, people who are retiring now, we are able to let them go with, what's the terminology? Chris would know what it is, but I feel it's a competence service, Chairman, and it's not lack of knowledge this end, it's what's coming out from legal government.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. The changes are dramatic. All I was asking, what the way forward the service is doing to align ourselves with the correct training and move us away from the sort of the red position to make it a bit more easier on the service.
I think the service is doing all that it can in the circumstances.
Yeah. Sarah, would you like to
Hi,
come
Chair.
back on that one?
Chair, I have got my hand up. I know you've seen it all.
Sorry, David, you didn't see it. Look, yeah.
But as somebody who sits on the pension committee, I think it's only fair to say that it is a very good pension, and the members and the officers and our fire staff, you know, they do put a lot of money into their pension to make sure that they have a good pension at the end of it. You know, and as you know, firemen, they retire early. But, you know, there are concerns about what's happening with pensions across the country, really. Local authorities having the same worries and concerns. You know, in regards to future, you know, the triple lock being mentioned, all these kind of things. You know, but from our sort of perspective, I would just say, you know, it needs looking at, and we have to make sure that our members, the members of the authority, not us, like, you know, the members of the fire brigade, do get a good pension, because it's well deserved. And as a team and as an authority, we have to make sure we do what we can to ensure that.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly follow both your comments regarding that, and thanks for your input. Sarah, would you like to come back with an answer if you got one, or?
Yeah, just briefly, for members' assurance, a lot of time and energy is being devoted in supporting the local pension board and pension provision throughout the various mechanisms within the service. We've allocated some specific resource to really focus on this area, and I'm sure members can appreciate that it's quite a volatile situation at times, particularly with some of the legal judgments that have been coming out lately. So just provide members with assurance that those are being reviewed as they come out. We've got specific resources attached to focus on those changes and to support our members of the various pensions.
Yes.
So just to provide members that assurance, really.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, did you want us to come in with anything, Bart?
No, as I say,
No.
I smiled.
The other point I looked at was the crewing. Now the COVID because that's in a red
Yeah.
triangle. With the crewing and COVID now coming out of restrictions, will that affect that, going forward? Will the crews be increased or will they be kept the same? That's on page...
Which particular risk is that?
65 and 66.
Oh, no. DRTDs.
Yeah, so it's the second paragraph down on crewing reductions.
Crewing reductions.
That's been able to train the crew to get out on station.
So bear with me a moment, members. I'm just reading that one. Okay, yeah, so I think that was basically, now we need to remember we're back at Q3 on this one, at the end of Q3. So I think this was around training school to be able to provide the training provision so that we could keep our crew supported with new recruits. And although it's identified as a high risk there, it's something that was very closely managed and supported. Dowie also wants to come in on that one.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yeah, I know you'd have an answer. But
No. Sarah's covered it quite well, and I wasn't at the Fire Authority meeting, but I believe there was one December where the approval was given for permanent or temporary posts, non-uniform posts in the training team. These have been allocated, and that's helped with the provision and facilitation of training at Cardiff Gate. Also, we've made changes to sort of the way we do some of our training courses, particularly the on-call initial training, where the on-call delivery team supports this training away from Cardiff Gate at Abercarn. So, yes, as Sarah rightly said, this was to the end of Q3. It's very much likely this will change to an amber or even a green at the end of year.
Yeah. I thought it would be. I know you'd have a reasonable answer just to justify the statement in there. That was the only reason for that. Any other questions from any other members?
Sorry, Chair. No, I just think it illustrates, the transparency that you were having. You were seeing things, albeit it's a month or two late because it's the end of quarter. It's there for you to see. And we have put mitigation in place since that to overcome and alleviate any problems that may have occurred.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because it does give us a chance to challenge and just make sure the things that are followed on. Yeah, excellent. So that one is for noting, unless anybody else got a question now before we move to the next one. No?
Who's for a second, please, Chair?
Yeah, I was going to say the next one. Anybody like to move it?
Move.
Second.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. It looks funny if I keep doing them all. Right. If we can move to the next item, which is item 13, Register of Gifts and Hospitality 2021. Page 169.
Yes. I'll take that one for you, Chair. Again. Yes. So, members, this is a report identifying for you the gifts and hospitality that have been either offered or provided to the service throughout the year. The reason for presenting this report is at least twofold. Firstly, to ensure that we carry out our business fairly, openly and honestly, and provide integrity and keep the reputation of the service as it should be. So similar to how members are required to disclose their personal interests and gifts and hospitality in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct, we also have an Officers' Code of Conduct, which puts the obligation and the requirement on officers to disclose personal interests and gifts and hospitality which are offered to them. Now, back in 2017-18, identified in the risk management anti-fraud audit, that there was a recommendation from there for the register of the gifts and hospitality to be reviewed for member scrutiny on an annual basis. So members will see at Appendix 1 on page 173 of this report the itemised register of gifts and hospitality which have been offered to the service, whether they have been accepted or declined as well. So happy to take any questions on this. Just to advise members, we promote the registering of gifts and hospitality a number of times throughout the year on routine notice, which is one of our fundamental weekly publications, and we encourage officers, however small the gift or the hospitality is, to declare as such. Members will see one for very little value identified there, but in order to show that diligence and transparency, we do encourage all officers to identify anything they are offered. Happy to take any questions from members.
Could I say, I think it's great diligence by being open and transparent on the things that, you know, that have been given and declared. So I'd like to show my appreciation of that anyway. Any other people any comments?
I mean, are we actually feeding our chief officer? I see he consumed his small lunchbox.
He was hungry, Val, I think.
Yeah, on his bike. No, I hate to move, Chairman.
Yeah, to be that's an item for noting. Would somebody like to propose and second it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Yeah, anybody second?
I still not have my water bottle.
I'll second. Happy to second.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah. Right. That's great. That's noted. If we now move on to item 14, I'm afraid Steen's been waiting till last for the internal audit progress report and audit action update, page 177. So
the appendix.
Yeah, is that I got you down, Lisa, to start that off, or is it Steen going to do it?
One stage, you can do it.
Thanks, Lisa. Morning, members. Yeah, if I briefly take you through each of the reports, we've got the core HR report, follow-up, and our progress report. But I'll briefly take you through some of the highlights for each. I'll focus particularly on the core HR because we've covered some of the elements previously. So you'll see in your packs that the scope for this review is to consider the extent to which modules available through core HR system are integrated now, effective they are, particularly in terms of budgeting and identification of establishment controls. So in looking at the reports, with the modules, some of the modules we looked at were payroll, expenses, call time, e-recruitment, learning and development, health and safety, and employee manager portal. As you can see from the key strategic findings and the action points, there were 3 important recommendations. But overall, it's important to note out that a number of examples were noted where the adoption of the modules and changes helped implement good efficiencies. Mainly that's through the process itself, so good workflows within the systems, things like for recruitment and onboarding, but also self-service for employees and managers, creating efficiencies through reduced input, HR and payroll teams, for example. In terms of the recommendations, you'll see, as I say, there are 3 important recommendations. The main one there you'll see in the strategic findings, improvements have been implemented largely organically. So the recommendation is to identify what the priorities are and manage those priorities. There needs to be a balance between developing new functionality and improving and honing existing modules. Obviously, there's only a finite amount of resource available to do this, so there's a recommendations for a prioritization process to be implemented so that there's a focus on what's really required and needed at a particular time and over time. The next recommendation then is focusing on the HR support and development officer. So just at the moment, just one person in post with kind of the super user, if you like. So there's a reliance on that individual, both in terms of development, but also in supporting the existing modules and systems that are in place. So again, the recommendation is to kind of develop processes around that to support that particular officer in that role. So there's resilience in terms of if they were absent or what have you. And then the final recommendation, then again, the priority 3 recommendation. There are some historic issues in terms of some of the reporting that was anticipated at inception of the project, which hasn't taken place. That's required some manual intervention or manual processes. Obviously, there's a risk of inaccuracies and there's also inefficiencies in that. So the recommendation is to kind of identify what those are and bottom out kind of fixes for those kind of issues that have been ongoing. So I'm happy to take any questions on that report.
Yeah, well, thank you for the report. I'd like to see the recommendations of being given a timeline for somebody to look into it, those as immediate access. So thank you for that, Steve. Yeah. Anybody else? Or question? No. If you'd like to carry on to the next one, please.
Okay, so the next report in your pack is the follow-up report, so I won't spend too much time. It just gives you a high-level overview of which of the reviews that were undertaken. Just to give you background, members be aware from previous years, this is a review that follows up the recommendations from the previous financial year. So in this case, it's 2021. We also follow up any recommendations that are outstanding from years prior to that. So you'll see recommendations in there relating to 2018-19, for example. As Sarah said in her report, there are 13 outstanding actions or recommendations. Again, Sarah described those as green and amber, but the audit agrees with that. So there's good evidence of implementation, or at least starting to implement the recommendations. Some of the issues encountered are, a lot of them were to do with policies and procedures and development of those. Some of those have been impacted by COVID in terms of not knowing what's going to be the new processes as we go forward, and some of that's been impacted by a need to prioritise other areas. So the policies and procedure documents perhaps haven't been updated as would have been hoped. But again, happy to take any questions on the follow-up.
Anybody got any questions for Steve?
No.
Like you said, some of the outstanding ones may be COVID related anyway. So as you can see, that quite a few have been implemented anyway. But thank you for that, Steve.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one then is what we call a SICA, Summary Internal Controls Assurance Report. But basically it's a progress report, so it's just to give you an update on where we are with the plan, any issues that have we've identified from a sector's perspective in the last quarter. So again, just to give you a brief overview, some of the key frauds you'll see within paragraph 10, there's a number of frauds in there. Just to make you aware of, the incidence of fraud has increased during the pandemic, and particularly around cyber. So obviously there's a need to be vigilant, and we've been informed this week the number of phishing attacks and the like have also increased in the last week quite considerably because of the crisis in the Ukraine. So that's another area to focus on. Just in terms of our plan for the year, most of the work is now complete, so we're just waiting for the reports to be produced, and the final reports and the annual report will come to the next audit committee. So again, I'm happy to take any questions on that one.
Yeah, as you can see, a lot of these frauds are very, very sophisticated, and it takes a lot of good governance to try and keep them out. And I don't envy the task from anybody doing that. Any other questions for Steve?
Councillor White, are you indicating? I've got a raised hand for Councillor White.
Anybody? I can't even see that up on here. Anybody? Who's it?
Councillor White.
Councillor White? David?
That might have been a hangover from previously.
Legacy hand, they call it. That's a posh term.
Yeah. Can I make a comment, Jim? At this stage of the meeting, at this stage of the meeting, how do you actually get the hand up on the screen to say you want to speak? I'm loath.
Yeah, Councillor Smith. I believe it's in the very top menu. There's a raise hand option there.
Oh, it's here. Yeah. Anyway. So just my comment on that report. Well, just a comment that I found interesting that there's an increase in referrals regarding staff who are working remotely having a second full-time job. I thought that counts real enterprise. It's one of the comments that's been made in the report. And it's nothing I'd ever considered. So, no, so I'm going to find that thing somewhere on the top. Right. I've got it. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The full-time job might be looking after the family while at home, because that's a full-time job.
More than a
As other
full-time
members
job.
will be aware. But no, that's great. Well, anything you wanted to add to any of that, Steen, or is it?
No, just a comment. I guess just a comment on that particular client briefing note in relation to staff working from home. Clearly, there's a risk that it impacts upon the job they're doing for you as an employer. And this is based on an article actually in The Guardian, and some of the flags that they pointed out were things like not attending meetings, attending meetings late, not meeting deadlines. So it's probably not an issue we've had before because staff were working on site so much. So, but who knows kind of going forward what the difference might be. So yeah, no further comments on that really.
Thank you, Steve. Just to clarify then, that's a potential risk for organisations, not something you've specifically picked up for the service.
That's right, Sarah, yes.
No,
super, thank you.
So they put it in there to safeguard, which is correct. So thank you, Steen, anyway. So the Appendix D shows you as well from your report, you know, on the briefings on developments on government risk and control. So members would have seen that last bit, wouldn't they? So if everybody ask for noting, so anybody can propose it and second it.
I propose.
Second.
Yeah, thank you, David. Right, we move on to the next item, which is item 15, a forward work program 2020-21 to 2022, page 205.
Page 205. Thank you, Chair. I'll just run members very briefly through that. So you'll see that we've already indicated that the draft annual report of the FAPM committee and the FAPM scrutiny group has been moved to the 11th of April FAPM meeting, and the additional items that we have currently, which apologies, they're not on the forward work programme yet, would be the draft annual report, the internal audit report, the internal audit action plan for the year coming up, and also Audit Wales, those charged with governance response. So they are, although at the moment the forward work programme looks slightly light for the next FAPM committee, I wanted to manage members' expectations that they'll have a number of papers on there to review.
Well, the April one will be our last meeting of this sitting for members, then, will it?
Yes.
Well, anyway. Well, item 16, I haven't got any items that need urgent business. So I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance and their input this morning and for officers' time. And
thank you very much, Chairman.
Hopefully everybody have a nice day for the rest of the day. That's
Cheers,
a meeting.
Thank you.